right, so what's up, y'all? I'm here with David Asimeng. A lot of y'all may already know him from my channel, but at the same time, I feel like he's gonna have to reintroduce himself. Not that he's anything new right now, but he's kind of like gone up the ladder since since I brought him on. Like David. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is David Asimeng. I'm an animator, illustrator, a little bit of a designer, creator of the Huemans webcomic as well as Hood versions. And I just like making stories, man. I'm also known as Individual on Instagram. I just like creating, quite honestly. I just like making stuff that is relatable to people, that gives them a new perspective, challenges their thinking, causes them to reflect ultimately. I think that's what I like to do, whether it's with art or outside of it. I like causing people to take a second to think about their lives and like what they can retrieve from it. And a tool I've used is actually MBTI. Just being able to tap into the different relationships, because relationships is always going to be a hot topic, but being able to use that as a method within the storytelling to get people to understand more about themselves, I think has probably been the coolest part about the Huemans comic. But then also reintroducing faith and repackaging it in a different kind of way that's a little bit more entertaining, a little bit more modernized for people in this day and age. And trying to get them to understand that the Bible is not like archaic, but rather it's still very relevant in their lives today. And I think I've been steadily getting better at connecting with people in those two regards. Like for me, I'm trying to reach a C.S. Lewis kind of level in which I'm all about my faith and everything, but I'm also about people. You know what I mean? So I try to approach getting people to not only be better to love one another, but then also love God in different ways. So Hood versions is my expression of getting people to love God in a more overt way. And then Huemans is my way of getting people to empathize and relate to one another and to understand themselves in a more covert way. And I think I'm still definitely going to weave God in some way, but those are my two tools right now. And that's what I've become obsessed with. And that's why I'm rambling.
No, I totally feel that. And it wasn't an easy climb for you too. Like David has always been working upon working upon working. So when I saw the spike in his Instagram followers, like I was like, wait a minute. This is like not just out of nowhere. Like David would come over for my birthday, like he would travel to Virginia for my birthday like years ago. And while he's there, like during his free time, he's drawing, he's doing some stuff for Instagram, and then, like it did it again like the next year, and like it was just like a gradual thing that he continued to work upon and everything. And now like when he blew up and his drawings are being like featured on different channels and stuff like that, it was like, oh shoot, like this is big, but at the same time it's like it makes sense. And so like how was that for you?
I think it really comes down to right when I was younger. Like, okay, so we're both African, bro. I've told you this story so many times, but whenever I told my parents, like, yo, I want to be an artist when I grew up, because we'd have.
You want to be a what? I'm sorry, I thought you didn't say lawyer or doctor.
Did you hear? Did you hear me? Okay. So I would tell them like, yo, I want to be an artist. And they said, no. My mom actually got scared. She would look at me. She'd be like, you want to be a huh? And I'm like, I want to make cartoons. And she would look at my dad like, and my dad was like, like he didn't hear me, but I peeped the whole thing. And I was just like, oh,
of course.
So that's okay. So she lightly tried to discourage me. She was like, okay, how about you make that like a hobby?
Mm-hmm.
Pursue something else, like architecture. I was like, you know what? I could try that. And I just don't like math.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Mm.
So like it's difficult. Interestingly enough, I still have to do some type of architecture in
Mm.
some of the comics now, but I just could not do it back then.
Yeah.
I tried to do even like um like art and biology, like anatomy and stuff.
Uh-huh.
It just wasn't really my area at the time. I was just like,
Yeah.
no, this is not me. But I think it gave me the drive to be like, okay, my parents, um, they've always wanted me to be a certain type of way, only because they want me to be successful. It comes from a good place. They've sacrificed so that their kids can have better than them, and I totally understand that. However, what that looks like for them isn't what it looks like for me. And I think even at a young age, I understood. I tried to have the foresight to be able to be like, okay, someday they're not going to be here anymore. And the thought of doing something for them and then living with that consequence for the rest of my life scared me. And I felt so bad because it felt like I was being defiant, but I ultimately understood like this is something that I'm going to be living with for the rest of my life. And that's going to be a consequence of what I do. So I was trying to think sequentially, like, what is this going to look like? Um, so I pursued it. I pursued it despite not knowing exactly what it would look like, but I knew that I wanted to do something for God, and I knew I wanted to be the very best in like Pokemon terms. You know what I mean? I just wanted to be one of the greatest. Um, and I knew I couldn't settle for less. There was no room for anything less other than excellency because of the standards that my parents had set within me. So I tried to put myself in the best situation. I went to school for it, and I explored different outcomes and stuff like that. And now I'm at a place where my parents have passed away, but I'm also doing what I love and still being somewhat successful at it. Like I'm not where I want to be, but I used to be. So um, I feel like I'm still pursuing that and I'm still getting it done. I'm still doing it for God. I'm content in the work that I'm doing. I'm trying to be hardworking. And I think my parents would be proud of that. Even though they may not necessarily agree with the path that I took, the sentiment is the same. So yeah, ultimately, that's what drives me to be so like studious and trying to learn more, to really fail my way forward. I actually learned that from Will Smith. Just like whenever you see somebody who looks successful, it's because they keep on trying, right? And I think that's something that people are afraid of, like to just try something. And for me, if I'm always thinking about the future, I'm afraid of trying and failing. But at the same time, there are very few other ways that you can be able to be successful. Like it's either you're cheating or you're lying or I don't know. You have some type of machine behind you or something, but you have to try at it so that you can learn from it. So all those years of like I tried to go the abstract route with my art, but then people weren't understanding what I was saying. So then in an effort to communicate better to people, I tried to tap into the feedback I was getting from the audience. And I think that's actually what boosted my extroverted feeling, like that desire to contact the community so that like what I was saying wasn't so lofty and actually I wasn't taking myself so seriously. That actually helped me to be able to send messages much better because to me, art is a language. You're communicating something to somebody everywhere. Like people have to interpret your art for it to then be impactful and influential. But if they don't understand where you're coming from, then the point is missed, and that's a bunch of wasted effort. So my mindset was, how can I build a community that is understanding what I'm trying to say, and how can I be able to communicate with them and have them interpret whatever message that I'm trying to put out there, with even if it's not necessarily like laid out plainly, or even if they have a few different interpretations, do they understand what I'm saying? You know, like what is my inference also translating into the interpretation in some type of way? So I think that's what I've been learning. That's what I've been rejiggering. And that's why I've been enthusiastic and passionate about everything that I do. I think that's what drives it as well. So that's a very long answer, but yeah.
Okay, we've switched environments, technical difficulties or audio difficulties, but still, we right here. And I wanted to like bring up off of your last point. It's really good in my opinion, especially as an INFJ. The number one, like you said, like you understood like, yeah, I'm gonna be failing at times, but like you just keep on moving forward. So that's actually some of the stuff that I wanted to talk to you about. I wanted to bring up a few of those things, like where were some things that you failed. But then also I wanted to mention how like, especially like with the, because you did put out like more abstract art before. And I wouldn't go as far as to say that like, those who put out abstract art that you don't understand what they intended it for is quote unquote like no point, like useless or whatever. But at the same time, especially as an INFJ, like, it's different, when you have like FE, because it's not just self-expression, but it's actually, it's you trying to give a message, And so, like, for example, like if we're even looking at like someone like Lupe Fiasco, when he put out his latest album, there's a lot of songs in there that only a few people would be able to understand, like like you'd have to like really dissect it, and at the same time you just probably never, but like for him that's self-expression, like, and even though he's INTP, it's like the FE is inferior, so he's like, I don't really care if you don't really understand what I'm saying anyway. I'm trying to put out a message, but at the same time the message is mainly for only like my people. Whereas like for us with FE being higher and everything, then it's like, all right, we're trying to send a message to the general population. We're trying to like, benefit, more than just our people. And so, yeah, I can be self-expressive with my TI thoughts and everything, but if they're not grasping what I'm saying, if my NI is too lofty, then I need to go ahead and try to like fix that in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, I really like that you like stepped up in that sense, and you made it like more understandable for everybody to be able to like grasp and be like, okay, this is the direct message that David is trying to say, and this is how I've interpreted it as well. And is now being able to help them on a large scale with all of their relationships and stuff like that, especially with humans, which is going to be like the main point of all of this. But before we get to that, yeah, like what things have you saw that made you like fail?
Oh man. So okay, there's a bunch of stuff. Even recently, I put out a random comic. It was like a one-off, asking people about, like, I had made this concept about women being, like, in marriage, women being the cheerleaders and men being the coach. But they were both still partners in whatever they were doing, right? Like, they're both still teammates. And I asked this, right? But I think the way that I presented it was in a statement form. So then when I had asked the question, married people were like, no, that's not what it is at all. I was like, okay, fine. All right, cool. But I was still asking the question, but people had perceived me to be making a statement. I was like, no, I'm presenting this before you so I can see and gain different thoughts. Gotcha. But people really got upset about it. And I was like, okay, I'm keeping this in the Patreon. And y'all can go at it. And I just took it down because people didn't understand that I was asking a question. And I think that's where I missed the mark in terms of like what I was trying to infer or what I was trying to invite conversation for, and how people like really misperceived it. Another thing is, I had a YouTube channel, like my own YouTube channel. I don't know if you remember that, but I definitely tried that.
Yeah, I remember.
And the audio was bad. I mean, I think it's still up. The audio was bad. I was really whispering. I was a lot more reserved. I just or soft spoken. I was just like, I don't even like.
They were scripted though, right?
Yeah, I was just trying to get ideas out, and that was the more abstract stuff that I was doing because I was explaining the messages that I was trying to like put forth, and it just didn't gain a lot of traction. I think for multiple reasons, but I think I wasn't really as content because people, like, the messages weren't getting through. And I felt like I didn't want to have to dumb it down, because I don't think people are dumb, but like I just didn't feel like the messages I was trying to convey were reaching the audience that I wanted. And I think that's a huge part of like art in general.
Yeah.
Not just what you're saying, but who are you speaking to?
Exactly.
Because that's going to largely determine whether or not people can actually be able to grasp it. I mean, I think a lot of artists get caught up in the fact that like, oh, this is just my expression. And if that's your main goal, just to get it out, do that.
Yeah.
Feel completely comfortable in doing that.
Right.
But if your aim is to reach other people so that they can understand something, or so that you can be impactful in some way, then you're going to have to understand the audience you're trying to reach. And that requires that community building, that requires being you more engaging and stuff like that, which is very uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
And I don't even think another failure is I don't think I was very engaging with people when it came to my art in general. Like when it comes to my goal, right, of being able to reach people, I would post something, maybe 1 or 2 comments, but I reserved my energy for making more art instead of talking to people and seeing what they thought about it. Right? So like I just wanted to put it up and go.
Stereotypical 5. And you're social repressed. So, oh man, I got that. Yeah.
It was difficult for me to be more engaged. One way that I overcame that was just inviting more polls in my Instagram stories and trying to do it that way, trying to engage with people that way, using a lot of like those GIFs and stickers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It would be really quick. I would only do a maximum of 10 to be able to make sure that I wasn't exhausted with like the social energy and stuff like that. But I think that's also what geared me to be more communicative. And I think what touches people more is not just being that mysterious artist. Like some people can do that, like Banksy. I'm sure people are in rap. I've wondered who this guy is too. But he doesn't need to be mysterious for his art to be impactful.
Right.
What would also make it more impactful is if he somehow came out with his identity, because then people would feel more connected to him. So I realized, okay, I can't just be this talking head, like this Wizard of Oz thing. I kind of have to engage with people, and they have to feel like they're engaged with me, so that I can then get the feedback to then speak to their lives in a greater way. Because the main way for me to be able to touch their lives is if I'm transparent as well. It's a mutual thing that for me, and regarding my goals and building a community, it was necessary, and I kind of had to learn a bunch of different things. So the failed YouTube, different posts that when it comes to social media, to me, it's always a game of recalibration.
Gotcha.
What am I doing that is working? What am I doing that's not working? What are other people that are doing that are working better? For example, and I know I'm giving you long answers. I'm sorry.
It's cool, man. It's cool.
I just made a friend recently. His name is Ucheoma. He's Nigerian and he makes comics as well. But I noticed like he has this white border around his comics, and he gets like I didn't see a major difference between his work and mine in terms of the quality of the work. Like we had different themes and stuff, but I think the way that he formatted it yielded better results for him, and it's actually been working for me as well. Not in the same way, but I've been seeing better results because I've learned from him. So it's just that recalibration of constantly learning, and I think that's what's driven me as well. Like, okay, what am I doing that's not working? I've always trying to be better. Like, okay, if I do this and this and this, will this create this and this sequence kind of thing? Like, okay, let me mix and add and try different stuff and make a cocktail of something so that it's more presentable to people in the moment where they are, meeting them there. And then they can also give back to me by giving me ideas for better content. Like in the Patreon, people are now giving me ideas for comics and stuff. Like people are like, yo, I really love the way you do this. Have you thought about this? Or have you thought about these characters? Literally this morning, someone gave me a whole list of Huemans characters that I could use. I didn't ask for that. But I'm like, yo, these ideas are genius.
Wow.
But then
Yeah.
having that conversation, I'm like, yo, I can shout you out because this is good. I like giving people credit where credit is due, but like, yo, this is like, they're doing half the job for me now.
Yeah, and
Way more efficient for me.
I was about to say, like, all of that recalibrating is work in and of itself. Like, you know, you having to like look at the format of how things are, and then trying to figure out like, okay, like what's working, like what's not. Like, I know like, even with stuff that you've been doing, like with me and Jamila and everything, and it's just like, I'm not much of an Instagram guy. Like, I'm trying here and there, but it's like, you know, the stuff that you would say, and like you're like, okay, you know, how about I create this template for you, and then you start doing it this time, and then you look at the times that they're posting over here, and then check out the algorithm over there, and I'm like, wow, like again, like I'm telling y'all, like David didn't just climb up to this, like, you know, with ease. Like, it took a lot of like looking at the patterns of how Instagram works, and it's always ever changing, and then focusing on like, you know, okay, what can I do? What's working with the people? People are fickle. So, you know, it's like you can't always, even an INFJ is not always able to predict how people are going to respond to things. And so it's like that failure and all of that. And especially as an INFJ too, like I always say that the INFJ's growth spot is to become more extroverted, like that auxiliary extroverted feeling. Like the NI can have as many patterns as it wants, but until it checks it out with the external world and gathers more and everything, then it's just going to be running through the same patterns over and over and over again. That NITI looping, it's like, okay, I have these same 4 patterns I just keep on going by. And all of these other patterns, like, I have these as just theories, but I haven't really checked them out with people because I haven't engaged with them. And so the fact that you've like now grown and like you're actively engaging with people and you're seeing these patterns, and then it's feeding your NI because of your FESE engagement with these people. Now it's like, okay, I can actually give out valuable insight about the human mind and about, you know, interpersonal dynamics and everything. And I can show you guys what works and what doesn't. I can give you guys examples of what will not work through these comic strips. And it's cool because, you know, then a good person can like read your Humans comic strips, and then especially if they identify with a certain character, then if you write that character as doing something, then they could be like, oh shoot, did I do my ex like that? Yo, did I do my mom's like that? Yo, did somebody do me like that? You know, and it kind of lets them have like a little bit of distance between them and themselves so they don't get as defensive, but not so much distance as to where they can't relate and still glean the lesson from the character. So now it's like the character, from learning his lesson and going through all of that, you didn't have to go through that as well, but you can now like understand it enough to be able to avoid it. And I feel like that's where like Humans is really like excelling. And you said that you didn't even mean for it to be a series, like it was just something that kind of like caught fire, right?
Man, if I knew what Humans was going to do, or if I knew what people wanted from me from the jump, I would have planned out this whole thing way differently. Like, my one gripe with Humans is that it's just more of that recalibration thing, learning as I go. And it's very uncomfortable for me because I didn't have like, okay, this is going to be part 1, it's going to be part 2. I didn't have any of that. It actually was a demand. Okay, so I made initially, like I listened to this woman doing an interview. Her name on Instagram is Talk, the number 2, Spirit, right? Her name is actually Spirit. It's weird, but
that's really
she's really good, right?
That's
she's really good at what she does. She's amazing. And she gave this analogy of, because the comment, what she was talking about was, why do women continuously encounter the same people or attract the same people? And what she was explaining was, okay, it's crazy. She used the colors, I think, red and lavender, right? She was like, okay, if I'm really a lavender and I'm soft and I'm sweet and I'm kind, but I'm presenting myself as if I'm bold and strong and confident and fierce, then I'm going to attract people who like red. It makes sense. If a guy is looking for a certain type of woman who is independent, doesn't care about like hurting people's feelings or whatever, can take it and like that type of stuff, those are the type of women he's going to go after. And that's the type of woman you will keep on attracting. So if you present yourself as you truly are, then that's what you're going to truly, like, the people who are going to you're going to attract are really going to come to you for that, and you're going to be appreciated for that. It may be less than what you're used to, it may not necessarily be what you would have expected, but it would still be something that you appreciate even more, and it'll help you get closer to attracting the people that you actually want to attract. And that was just one aspect of it, but I was like, yo, what if I took, because humans is not a new thing.
Right.
The concept of humans actually started way earlier. I was just trying to relate to like millennials and like the college stage. And initially it was just like a cute little funny comic strip about like being a 20-something-year-old and stuff like that. But it just wasn't really hitting at the time. So like that was my very first attempt at a webcomic in general. But it also wasn't very developed. It was had the same concept of like people being different hues and stuff, but it was just line work. It wasn't a lot of like color or anything like that. And I dumped it. And I was like, I'll come back to this later. Now, years later, I'm like, okay, if I can just illustrate what this woman said in a powerful way and show people and layer that on top of the humans idea, we have something that we could actually I could actually speak to people. Because mind you, I've already been doing hood versions at that point.
Yeah.
I just wanted to do a one-off. I just wanted to get this idea out so I could move on to something else. And I was actually going back to the hood versions comic, but when people had seen the message, there was a really good response. But then you're like, wait a minute. We want to see more of these characters. Like, what's going to happen next with these characters? And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, I see people like pointing at that all the time. They keep on, and it's like, wow, you really got them hooked too. Like it's like as if they're watching a TV show and everything. And it's crazy because you're the one who's actually like writing the story. So it's like, just like you said, like, dang, I don't know like what is gonna happen with them. Like I'm reminded of like not that you're not an actual writer, but like, you know, like big time writers, you know, who make these books. And then, you know, people ask like, oh my gosh, J.K. Rowling. So like, what happens at the end? Like, what's going to, and she's like probably thinking to herself like, yo, to be honest, I don't know. I haven't made that up yet. you know, like does Ron and this like so-and-so like, yeah, you know, like
good idea.
Good idea. I'm going to use that. Exactly. You know? And so it's really cool because it really is all in your hands. And like, it's like, therefore, like, yeah, you don't know, but the more that you're seeing them get excited, it's like, all right, I'm about to know. Like I'm about to, we both about to find out. Like, and so something that's really dope, man, like for real. And would you, because I know that you based the hues, the colors of these people originally, not 100%, but like originally off of MBTI characters, Myers-Briggs personality types and everything. And so like I know that you got the orange is like ENFJ, and then you got like I think you have like Azul or not Azure, Sapphire as like Sapphire is like INFP, yeah, stuff like that, you know. Which one? So you're an INFJ, but like which of your characters would you say that you already like most relate to? Have you already put yourself into these comics in a way? Are you like going meta on yourself somehow? Is that something that's going to be coming up soon?
So interestingly enough, I mean, if people do the work, they can figure out which hue I am. But I actually don't want to reveal my hue to people directly because I feel like then they'll try to read into one of the characters too much and they'll think something about me when the point of the humans is not to be about me. It's not my story.
Right.
It's actually supposed to be a mirror for people, right? Okay. Like I wanted people to reflect on themselves and how they can be better instead of being like, so does that mean David's been dating a yellow?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like it's not. That's not the point.
Yeah.
It's going over your head. I know y'all like drama. That's cute.
Exactly.
Whatever. I'm using the drama to teach something that I've learned or that I think is valuable to people, and I don't want to get muddied up in that. But to your point, yes, when I first made the Humans idea, I talked to both you and Jamila about it. I was like, yo, I don't know what to do about this. I was really trying to figure everything out, and because like colors are a little bit more abstract than 16 personalities, it was very difficult to be able to match what color would match this one and to create a system, because colors can mean many different things, and sometimes it's even just based on interpretation. So like I wanted to make a metaphor, but it was very difficult to meld the two. So I literally spent a whole day just rejiggering and trying to reformat everything. Okay, this makes sense, this makes sense. And I'm still not even content with the way that I have it now, because so many different colors still kind of like look like one another, even though they shouldn't. But
yeah, I did notice that. But the names helps. The names of all of them, like that really like helps like distinguish a lot of stuff. And even with like kind of like what you were saying, that's actually why I asked that question, because I had a very strong feeling that, you know, I am in here, but I'm not really in here. And I don't, and that's why I don't want you to know, because I'm intentionally creating fabricated stories, maybe with a little bit of truth, but a lot of it is made up so that I can convey more of a lesson. And this is not for your drama purposes. I mean, yes, there's drama here, but there's not drama that, you know, you're going to be digging into my life for. You know, like, don't try to deep into it and then start inferring things about me based off of this character. I want you to look at you. And so, I figured that, you know, like that was the case, but I wanted to prime that question just to make 100% sure for myself, and then also so it could come from the horse's mouth, you clarify that on your own, just in case in the future, you know, like as this is continuing to grow and people do start to wonder, like, yo, so David, like, which one are you? Like, or even if they're not even asking, but they're just assuming like, oh, well, David is an INFJ and he posted this comic, I wonder if he's saying like this, or, you know, you had a girlfriend in the future or something. And she reads the comic. She's like, "Oh, so this dude, you just put out a comic about this. Like, so what's going on?" And it's like, all right.
And people have tried. People have, of course.
I'm sure they have.
I'm sure they have. You though, like, are these coming from like real experiences about?
What's your inspiration?
Like, yo, so you know what I mean? Yeah. The point of like the Humans is, it's not even really about their type. Again, like, I'm using MBTI personalities as a basis for how I'm going to construct the character.
Exactly.
But the situations that they go through, I think, are heavily relatable. So even if you're not an ISTJ, even if you're not an ESFP, you can understand their situation and therefore empathize potentially with someone who you have potentially nothing in common with, strictly based on their personality type. The point is to understand and glean lessons from this and be like, okay, I can understand why this person would feel this way. I can understand why this person would react this way. Right? Like, I think the coolest thing is seeing people learn from a completely non-existent situation. Like, none of these things have happened in real life, at least not from what I've seen. And yet people are still like, I've been there before, or I understand that. And now people are having conversations and learning from one another based on something that is literally fiction.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
I think that is crazy.
It's almost like anime, to be honest, because that's what anime kind of does. Like, it presents a lot of fiction, especially even in like a fantasy world, you know, where things can happen that can't happen in the real world and everything, but they're all symbolic. And so then once you really look at it, it's like, oh, shoot, like, this is what's actually going on in my life. I mean, there's not literally, you know, this villain who's over here that's doing this and doing that, but there is, you know, a other side of me, or like I've been viewing my mother as a villain in this sense, when in actuality, like, it's really more something like this that I need to reframe my perspective on in this dynamic. And so I really respect that, like, for real. Like, that's really dope that you've been seeing it in this way. And I think that it's really good that you clarified that also, like how, yeah, sure, you made the characters as bases for them
Mhm.
and everything. But in actuality, like, this isn't to say that, okay, if you're not an azul, you know, like if you're not a sapphire, like if you don't see that like character in the comic strip, then you should not go and read that one. Like, I'm only trying to read the ones with all the sapphire, and they're like, no, I would recommend reading all of them, because at the end of the day, these are all interpersonal things that we could learn from each other. You might relate more to the Sapphire one because you might be a Sapphire one, but at the end of the day, like, the best thing to do is to learn from all of the different comic strips, and then the better that we're able to interact with each other, the better that we're able to like repair, to heal, to build and invest into our interpersonal dynamics, then the better we'll be able to operate in a society. Because that's, everybody always talks about, like, oh, we want world peace, we want world peace, but you know, like, we don't even got peace amongst ourselves, you know, like as just like a state, as a country, whatever, you know. And so I feel like these are things that we really have to learn. We really have to learn how to like communicate, and we have a lot of shows that demonstrate stuff like this. Like, I always talk about This Is Us, like Randall and Beth. I really I personally, like, I don't think that their marriage is horrible, but I'm just like, man, like, I just be looking at them and I'm like, yo, like, I feel like they're exemplifying so many different things that, like, it's, to me, it's good to see and be like, yeah, this is not how a husband should be like, or like,
Mhm.
this is how things, like, you know, cause. So like, when you look at things in that way and you're like, shoot, maybe if he didn't do this, then this wouldn't have happened. Then you look at yourself, it's like, so let me make sure not to do this so that this won't happen, you know. And I feel like, allow the comics to make the mistakes so that you don't have to. That's how I view it. Yeah. And so when David presents these comics and everything, which is another thing, don't go looking for your ex or for the person that, you know, like, and trying to, like, you know, like people in church, you know, and how as soon as the pastor is talking about someone who's like, you know, and you know, a lot of y'all have people in your lives, you know, who are like this, that, and, you know, and they're trying to screw you over, and then y'all go, amen. And it's like, how do you know that you're not one of those people to someone else? So
Mm.
it's like, really, like, make sure to look at yourself as you're reading these comics. Like, look at yourself, and then make sure, like, okay, am I this person? Have I done this before? Am I even doing this now? Before you're like, all right, now let me look at other people. Make sure that you look into the mirror before you go looking out the window.
Mm.
And I feel like that's what all of this is about. Like, this is how, like, David's like presenting it. In my opinion, this is how it's going to be like the most helpful.
For sure. Like, I think that's one of the um, interesting things about like how I've learned in life in general. Just
Mhm.
like I've always tried to learn from other people's mistakes because I didn't want to fail in the same way
Exactly.
they did.
Same here. Same
You
here.
know what I mean? Like,
Whether the people are fictional, whether they're in real life, whatever. It's like, I watched that. I'm like, ooh, don't do that. And I was doing that even before I got married. Like, I watched so many people in their marriages and like what, you know, brought up fights, what brought up and that it works. Like,
mhm.
again, cliche thing. Me and Jamila are not perfect, but I can honestly say that we are yet to have one of those moments. We're going to be 2 years next month, and we have not
Hey, come
had.
on.
I know,
Have
right?
have
And we have
fun.
not. We've had a lot of like difficulties, you know, like with finances, and you know, like stuff that we're trying to figure out, like about ourselves and stuff like that. But not once has there been a moment where it's like we blow up at each other, and then we're like, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. I was just upset." You know, like, to me, that's just not how we operate. It's always been, wow, okay, let's sit down and let's talk about this. I'm gonna let you
Mhm.
talk, you know, I'm gonna talk, and we're gonna really try to figure this out. But at the end of the day, we know that we are dedicated to this, and we're gonna like make it. And it's always worked out. Like, and that
Mhm.
really builds us up even stronger. Like, you know, like there's a whole bunch of sayings out there, like, you know, oh, a couple that doesn't argue is a couple with like a lot of secrets and stuff like that. But like, me and Jamila are like super open, you know, like
Mm.
with a lot of things to each other, and we trust each other enough to be able to like sit down and talk. And that took a lot of work. It took a lot of like patience and learning how to like trust one another's core. Like, once you know the
Mhm.
person's core, then even though they might do certain actions that might be questionable, you can trust, like, okay,
I can sit down with this person and we can work this out. And that's what the teamwork is like all about and everything. But yeah, like you said, you know, like learning, like looking at, you know, especially growing up as Africans, thankfully my parents, I also would say like I've never ever seen my parents argue. So that's one thing. That's a blessing for me. I know that other people can't really like say the same, but I've never seen my parents argue, and the way they operate with each other, I don't see them as the types who are like, okay, no, we just argue in private either. It's like they really have always known how to like just sit down and like talk with each other. So that was something that I was also able to take note of, like, you know, not just the bad things, but also the good things. But usually in African culture, a lot of things that you see is a lot of like arguing, a lot of like submit to me, you know, kind of type of stuff. And it's just like, you know, you take note of that. You see how the woman responds a lot of times. And then, you know, you kind of like see like, that's not right. You know, even with parenting, you know, that's the next thing that I've been like really like taking up. I've been taking notes about that ever since too. But yeah, that's the biggest point. Like, you know, like use this as an opportunity to like take notes so that you can help out your own interpersonal dynamics with your parents, with your significant other, with your brother, your sister, whatever it might be.
Yeah. And I think even in the next, right now, the volume 1 is like romantic relationships.
Nice.
But volume 2 is going to be more about platonic relationships. Like, what does that look like amongst people?
I think that's what people really need help with too.
You talk about it all the time.
Yeah, because I see that. I see so much. Because we invest so much into the romantic ones. And because of that, it's like, I'm not trying to say, yo, romantic relationships are dope. I'm home married. Like, you know, I'm not trying to like devalue my relationship with Jamila. But we undervalue our platonic dynamics. Like me and you, we have a platonic dynamic. And, you know, who would I be if I invested all of my energy, like most of like all of this into me and Jamila's dynamic, but I did not give enough time and energy into ours, you know, just because we're not married, you know, just because I'm not attracted to you in a romantic manner kind of thing. And it's the same thing with like even like my female friends and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, I'm married, but you're still special to me. And so I have to make sure that I'm still feeding this dynamic. I'm still managing these dynamics and everything. And if there's a problem, like I always see stuff like nobody ever taught us how to deal. Like we always learn about how to like get over an ex and, you know, romantic relationships and stuff like that. But how do you get over like ex like platonic dynamic, you know, like an ex best friend, an ex good friend, you know, stuff like that. Like we don't learn about stuff like that. And those are really traumatic and dangerous too. Like that, like platonic dynamics are usually actually the practice for the romantic. And so if you don't learn how to master those, especially since people are watching how you treat your friends, then you're not really going to master your romantic ones either, you know? And so, yeah, I just really, I've definitely been like on that, and I've been like talking a lot about it. And I think that we need to bring more value and more attention to platonic. But yeah, familial as well. I'm really excited for this.
Man, going back to the platonic thing, I agree wholeheartedly with being able to, because I think in some ways, platonic relationships are actually more important than romantic ones. And the reason why I say that is because in a lot of ways, the platonic is the basis for everything else.
Exactly.
Right? Like, like take men, for instance, right?
Yeah.
If a man is raised to believe, as a lot of black men usually are, if a black man is raised to believe he's only supposed to be chasing after women and only understands his relationship with women in a romantic context, when it comes to, apart from his family and stuff like that, when it comes to having a platonic relationship, he's not sure what to do because he wasn't groomed to be able to understand the depths of what that could look like,
right?
How to operate there, and how there's a place for that with him.
Yeah.
So like now, I'm not sure if a lot of black men may be able to handle platonic relationships with people of the opposite gender, right? Like just because of the way the social conditioning there, right? And there needs to be more work there because there should be. I think women understand the value of relationships with men, but I don't think men understand the value of relationships with women in a platonic context.
Yeah, in fact, that's why we have a whole bunch of things where it's like men can't be friends with women. And then the ones, a lot of the times, who advocate that yes, we can, are actually usually having an angle to where they can actually like finesse something, and it's just like, dang, like, you know, well, now you're proving this even worse. So we really have to try to like raise people and like teach people how to like, no, we really can, and then show it through our actions.
Exactly.
Because yeah, at the end of the day, like, you know, my platonic dynamics with like my female friends, such as like Albany, and you know, Andrea, you know, there's Steph, and all of them. Like, they have actually helped me so much with my romantic relationship with Jamila. Like, you know, yeah, Beatrice, like my friend Beatrice, she was the one who like helped me to go pick out Jamila's ring and everything. And I didn't know much about, you know, jewelry and everything. And I was not about to like, you know, ask Jamila like, hey, you know, come with me to pick out your ring or something like that, you know, like, so she was able to like help me out with that and everything. I had friends who who were able to teach me like so many different types of friends. Like Todd J, she taught me different things that like I still use in my marriage now and everything. And it's like, yo, these platonic relationships like with these females helped me with my romantic relationship with Jamila. And there's so many things that if I didn't have those like that depth with these people, then I wouldn't be able to like, you know, have as much depth with Jamila, because there'd be so many things I'm missing that you can't really like glean from a romantic dynamic like with ease like that. Like, it's like, dang, you know, this is stuff that you should have learned at level 1. You shouldn't have hopped up to this level if you didn't already know these things. But a lot of people are already looking forward to this next level of romance and everything. And yeah, like, you know, you're skipping things that you should have learned in the platonic level. Thankfully, you can still be learning things, and you should still be learning things when you get up to that next level. But it's preferred and better if you learned it from the previous level already before you hop into that. And so I'm really looking forward to that comic series. But I wanted to ask, like, you know, before we get off, like, is there any last things that you wanted to like mention, and then also like shout outs? Well, not even like, I mean, if you have shout outs too, but like, you know, like where people can find you, like what's coming up, all of that.
Man, I'm sad we had to. I was about to go on a tangent, but
Oh yeah, no, actually, if you want to go ahead and do that, then we can go ahead and do that.
All right, so
Okay. All right. Yeah, it was on 2% by now. So, but okay. Your tangent?
yes, so just something I've been thinking about recently. Just engaging, what I call engaging with the tribe, and just like talking to the community about random stuff. Is that I think men are even probably less equipped to deal with romantic relationships because they don't understand platonic relationships. So what I mean by that is like, so for example, if a man is conditioned to pursue and chase whatever woman or as many women as he possibly can, then he's also conditioning himself to want certain aspects of a woman that he prefers because he has different experiences and stuff like that. So he dates a woman, or he gets a woman that can cook really well, and then he dates another woman who is really good in bed, or he dates another woman who he just had that connection with and stuff like that. And he's saying, okay, I like this, I like this, I like this. I want a woman who has all of that stuff put together.
Yes.
Right? So like now he's trying to like build a woman,
Right.
but because he's so used to getting parts of people, he can't value a woman as a whole being, but only something to be consumed.
Wow.
So because he's only viewing women as something to be consumed, he doesn't know how to value them as anything apart from himself.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So like now he's trying to be able to, he's trying to find someone who has all of the things that he wants, and yet while doing that, he's only still finding certain aspects of a woman that he likes. Okay, she's good in bed and she cooks, but we don't really click like that. So I keep her around while I look for someone that I really want. Even if he were to find someone who is adequate in a lot of different areas, he might still feel like, oh, I can find better.
Exactly.
Right? So now I'm still going to, like, there'll be a part of him that wants to be committed, but then there's still a part of him that's just like, Jody over there is really nice with the cooking. You know what I mean? And he's probably just getting to know her just in general, but he can't fathom not being in a relationship or not having some type of like chemistry.
Right.
And it's either that or she's just ugly and he's not really like interested in like
Which
whatever.
happens, yeah.
You know what I mean? So like
Yeah,
he
for
doesn't
sure.
want to consume her, so
Mhm.
therefore he puts her to the side and then still keeps her at a distance. So it's just like, okay, do you actually really love women for who they are, or do you
Right.
love what they can offer you? Do you love
Oh,
what you can get?
wow.
You know what I
Wow.
mean? So like
Yeah, totally.
developing that platonic level is actually helping me to understand, okay, how can this be a mutual relationship? How can I understand who this person actually is, right?
Mhm.
And once you understand who that person actually is, you actually get a deeper understanding of what they can probably even provide for you. And you don't have to go
Sure.
everywhere. Like now
Exactly.
you have a friend who can give you advice, who you can pour into as well. And it's a
Mhm.
mutual thing, but it's not necessarily filled with sexual chemistry. There's still
Yeah.
value there, apart from yourself, from what
Mhm.
you consume from her, right? It's a
Mhm.
mutual exchange that's going on, as
Yeah.
opposed to how I think men are conditioned to be like, okay, I want this from you. And I'm gonna run game. We're gonna do this whole cat and mouse thing. I've been here. It's kind of a sport thing. I get it. It's fun for me. But then as soon as I get what I want and you're not willing to give it up anymore, whether it could be cooking, whether it's anything, there's no reason for me to be here anymore. So I'm gonna
Facts.
bounce.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, that was so much facts. That was so much facts. And I feel like that alone, like pointing that out to people, especially men, that would bring like a whole world of like just crashing down around them. Like, dang, this really is something that I really have to start investing more time into, like learning about and everything. If I really am trying to have this ideal relationship, romantic relationship or whatever. And of course, ideals are always carrots that we're continuously chasing, but we're never really going to get. But it keeps you moving in the direction of which you should be going. If you see the relationship in that way and everything, and you continue to invest in that way, and you continue to look at your platonic relationships also, and understanding that these are different parts of people in a sense, and you're learning like how much to not even like settle for, but like what is just a realistic expectation that you can have. Yeah, you can really go places with that, man. So yeah, for sure, that's facts. I'm really glad that you like you brought that down, and I'm really excited once again to see like how you're gonna hit all of this into your human comic strips and everything like that. Yeah, this is gonna be big, man. I'm really proud of you.
Thanks, man. I'm just trying to put it all together and hopefully put it all together in a book so that
Yes,
like some
that's the
people
next
want like
thing.
physical copies. So I'm like, okay, I'll figure that out. You know what I mean? But like, I guess I'm just in a space where I'm constantly just trying to figure things out as I go instead of planning before I move, which is very
Wow,
uncomfortable.
you're an
Like,
INFJ. That inferior SE is really moving. That's really good. I like that.
man. I feel like I say this all the time, but I feel like I'm becoming more like you. You're becoming more like certain ways where like how you could just figure things out as you go. And
Uh,
like now I have to do that. You know what I mean? But it's
yeah,
like,
I
this is
remember
weird.
back in the day, even our first video together, you specifically said, "I hate doing that. I'm not going to do that." You didn't necessarily look down on me. I don't think that you ever did that, but because you understood, like, hey, it works for him. But like you were just like, nah, I'm not taking that risk kind of thing. It would be foolish for me to do that. Yeah, like you've been growing a lot and now it's like, hey, I'm actually figuring this out, which is good because that's how development is supposed to be. And then for me, I have been taking more time to like more than usual or more than back then to like really like, okay, let me put in the extra work to really like plan this so that I don't improvise so much of the way. But again, being the type of person that I am, SE tertiary, like it is better for me to improvise at least a certain amount. But at the same time, it's like that NI auxiliary. Like I still have to make sure that like I'm putting in enough planning before I give in the improvising. So it's all about like knowing my skill set, and yours now too. And there's just times where it's like, yeah, you're gonna have to improvise, and you better know how to. And there's times where you're gonna have to plan, and I better know how to like plan all the way, like playing like, close enough. So yeah, I really like this middle ground that we're coming to at the age of 25 and 26.
Yeah, man, crazy.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
man. Yeah, but that's what's up. Where can we find, like, I know that you got Patreon, like, tell us about that. What's the perks about your Patreon? And yeah, the perks for your Patreon. Why should we go on this dude's Patreon when we can just get everything on Instagram and stuff like that? Like, so
Don't get everything on Instagram.
Exactly.
Patreon, they get all the good stuff first, and they keep all the stuff that I don't share with Instagram. So actually, right after I get off this call, I'm gonna go live with what I call the tribe, right?
Nice.
I call it vibe with the tribe. I just throw in some music. I show them the comics as I'm making them.
Nice.
So they're just seeing the full development. They get to ask me questions about myself, as well as like what's going to happen in the future. We deliberate and talk, and it's like a really cool vibe. And if like I'm not talking, there's still the music that they can jam to. But then also I show them sketches. I show them, there's actually what I call Huemans, where I'll have like, where I'll have like these short comics in there that'll be like really cute one-offs, just funny, just something to like be able to share with the tribe that I'll never post on Instagram. Like they never do that.
That's really dope.
Content like phone wallpapers and stuff like that. I'm working on stickers to give to the Patreon right now. Merchant coming soon. They'll get discounts on that. They're also a really cool perk. The highest perk is being featured in the comics themselves. Like 2 people just got featured in the last one, and they love it. They appreciate it, and like they get to see themselves. It's based on their MBTI type and their hue, but like they'll just be all over the place. Sometimes they'll even be in hood versions. You know what I mean? So it's based on first come first serve, but there's a bunch of different stuff that I'm doing, and right now we have about 90 people in the Patreon. So if you want to join the tribe, come through. We are having fun.
Yeah, for sure, man.
So there's that. I'm also on Webtoon as individual, INDAVIDUALL. You can find me on Instagram with that same @ I'm also on Twitter, not as much these days because I'm trying to juggle all this other stuff. But yeah, for sure, I'm out here.
Yeah, that's what's up. That's what's up, man. And his phone number, by the way, is for the ladies. Oh no, I'm kidding. 646. No, I'm kidding. All right, but it was great talking to you about all of this, man. And I'm excited once again to see where all of this is about to head to. And we're definitely going to be staying tuned. Get it? Stay tuned.
I see what you did there.
But
the line is, I have some questions for you.
Oh, okay. All right. And on that note, done.